And Will Cain is also here with us right now. And earlier in the show, we talked about Draymond Green's strong comments, obviously, about Knicks owner James Dolan. Take a listen.
This is Charles Oakley. Why is he buying tickets to the game? If I'm not mistaken, Dolan's was owning that team when he was playing. It wasn't a problem when he was speaking out then. It wasn't a problem when he was protecting their superstars then. And so if it wasn't a problem then when he were doing it for y'all, why is it all of a sudden a problem now when he speak out on something that he don't like? And now you want to disown him from your entire organization. That's a slave mentality. You're doing it for me, it's all good. But now you're doing it against me, or not necessarily against me, but you're speaking out against my organization. It's not good anymore. That's a slave mentality, slave master mentality.
Now I can give you a proper introduction. Will Cain, good to see you. You weren't with us earlier when we discussed this in the show, and we wanted to hear your thoughts on that slave mentality comparison.
Yeah, and I didn't get to hear you guys, Max and Stephen A., specifically on Draymond's statements. But here's what I think is important. And again, you may have made this point. First of all, Draymond's comments they're extremely dumb. I mean, these are just ignorant comments. Anyone that suggests that millionaires or billionaires taking exception to the criticism of millionaires is the equivalent of slave mentality is beyond an ignorant comment. And by the way, anyone who suggests that a former employee criticizing his employer and showing up at his place of work to berate him somehow equates to slave mentality really isn't contributing anything positive. But actually, that's the more important point. It's not just that Draymond's comments are vapid or dumb or can be waved away with your hand. They actually take away from any serious-minded discussion of real issues, the legacy of slavery, racism. By the way, Draymond didn't stop at accusing Dolan of racism. He went all the way to slave master mentality. And when he does that, he diminishes so many things, important things, like legacies of slavery. He diminishes himself. Like, how am I supposed to take Draymond Green seriously on any serious subject in the future? How am I supposed to hear that and think he has something valuable to contribute to a discussion? And finally, this Oakley-Dolan fiasco, it's not like it was an important issue, but somehow Draymond even managed to make it less important. He somehow made it, he managed to diminish something that was already bottom of the barrel in importance as it is. He truly was a special individual in that he managed to diminish the most important and least important issues in our society in one incredibly ignorant statement.
Well, first of all, let me say this. It might be an ignorant statement, but when you talk the word dumb, what I would ask you to do is watch your mouth. And the reason why I say that, Will, is because even though I tend to disagree with Draymond Green in this particular instance, let's not act like it's beyond the pale for guys to have this kind of mentality when dealing with individuals. If anything, Draymond Green the word ignorant is apropos simply because he hasn't had any dealings with James Dolan personally, and as a result, he wouldn't know, because that's where the word ignorant emanates from. But understanding, you've got the Warren Sapps of the world and others, not that they're the greatest examples, but there have been a plethora of African-American athletes in the history of professional sports, in recent history of professional sports, who have had dealings with millionaires or billionaires or what have you, and they've had the mentality in terms of the manner in which they're spoken to, the manner in which they're treated, and what we as a nation of people, of a disenfranchised community, have been taught through history how we're dealt with, or how people are dealt with when they feel that way about you, when you're a peon, when you're minimized, when you're not considered. I'm just saying, hold on for a second, because we have a delay here, so I just want you to understand what I'm saying. I'm saying to you that you must take into account the fact that some athletes, as wrong as they may be, because of history and because of what we as African Americans have been taught in terms of how we were treated when we're being minimized, the manner in which you're talked to, the manner in which you're treated in comparison to others around you, there's some validity to folks who would jump to that conclusion. That doesn't mean they don't have to be responsible, but there is something to be said about that, and it can't be summarily dismissed like you are doing.
If I may, Stephen A., first of all, I will not watch my mouth. I will speak plainly. And if that makes people's brains short circuit when I call a comment dumb, so be it. But you and I, Stephen A., have a relationship where you can personally appreciate this. I am not, nor would I, call Draymond Green dumb. There's a difference between saying a statement is dumb and a person is dumb. And I will never beat around the bush or soft pedal a comment that I think is not only dumb but detrimental to serious issues. I don't disagree with what you said about serious issues and the legacy of them, from slavery to Jim Crow to institutional racism, which we've discussed when it comes to the criminal justice system. But let me make this very clear. What Draymond has done, what Draymond has said, that has diminished that point of view, not me calling it dumb. His statement is what takes away from serious discussion of those issues.
It was clumsily stated and wrong, I think. But let's not pretend that we don't understand the gist of it, which is Draymond Green is, yes, billionaire, millionaire, and of course, slavery, we're talking about the destruction of human beings, millions of them, over generations. It's very different. I think that's why he used the word mentality. He's not saying it's a literal representation of slavery, but he's saying it's a mentality. And what I gather from that, what I infer, is that he's talking about the power dynamics, Will, and rightly or wrongly, the optics are that, well, this is a fact, and whether or not Dolan was justified, that's a separate issue, but it's almost all white ownership. One African-American owner, who happened to be the greatest athlete in the history of American team sports, Michael Jordan, in a predominantly African-American league. One African-American owner, the rest are white. And so the owner is white, and the labor or former labor is African-American. And the power dynamic is that the owner can move the other guy from the arena, you know, with 5 guys, 6 guys around him. So I'm not questioning his right to do it, or even whether he was right or wrong ethically or morally when the facts come out, or if the facts come out. I'm talking about the optics, because the fact is, the indisputable truth, like, you know, no one can really argue against the idea that the reason almost all ownership is white is a legacy of slavery.
Yeah, but Max,
it's not because African Americans somehow naturally at a loss in terms of business. It's because they've been systematically excluded. And so when someone says something, even if they put it clumsily, and in a way I agree, dilute the issue when actual issues of racism are more apparent, let's not pretend we don't know what he's talking about. He's referring to power dynamics.
But Max, power dynamics exist in this society across employment spectrums, across racial spectrums, and every time that an employee takes issue with an employer, it can't be equated to a slaveholder's mentality. It can't be that, Max, especially, how about in the heightened scenario of millionaires disagreeing with billionaires? You know, you said rightly or wrongly. It's not rightly or wrongly.
I agree.
It's just wrongly,
he's wrong.
Max.
I agree he's
and
wrong.
Optics,
I agree for
just last point. Optics is the last failed stronghold of a weak point. I don't care about optics. I care about right and wrong.
You and I actually agree about this. Let's not pretend we don't know what he means.
I mean, guys, y'all are talking about slavery. Can the black dude speak for a second here? Here's the reality of the situation, Will. Draymond made an emotional argument. That's fair. It was an emotional argument. He could have easily called Dolan an insecure bully. He could have gone that route.
Yes.
But what I'm saying to you is that even though we may disagree, when you say speaking plainly, I can respect what you're coming from, but you're also highlighting the fact that, again, you're not black. And as a result, you haven't sat in the seats of black men who have had to deal with elder, more powerful white men. And as a result, the residue of emotion that lends itself towards, you're not taking that into consideration. In speaking plainly and succinctly and bravely, I might add, and candidly, and I applaud you for doing so, which is why I totally applaud you saying what you said. I'm not offended by it. What you have to understand at the end of the day, when you just speak so plainly, is that you are speaking very plainly as a white man.
Yes.
You are not a black
Stephen
man.
A., that
you
is
haven't
fair.
endured
Stephen A.,
what we've endured, and that's all I'm saying.
That
That's
is
all
fair.
I'm trying to say.
But if we, and we, the three of us, and then my relationship with you in particular, have earned an element of respect that I would repeat on this program over and over, and that is to take these conversations head on. face to face. This is one of the unique places where that happens. But I will say this. While I appreciate that my perspective when it comes to racial conversations is limited by the virtue of my birth, any discussion over race requires both of us. It requires your side and my side. So if the only response is I need to be quiet and listen, it's not a discussion.
No. Hold on.
I'm not saying you said that. I'm not saying you said that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Because I'm the one that invites you on the show to express yourself in that
clearly,
regard.
Two sentences earlier than that, I said you're
you.
not saying that.
Guys, let's leave it there. I appreciate the dialogue and all of you not shying away, obviously, from your opinions, even when they're potentially unpopular. We're going to go straight football.